Good evening and welcome to Tea with Mimi. We're live now, and I'm so delighted to be here with my special guest, eminent otolaryngologist, Dr. Udayan Shah. Udayan, it's great to see you.
Thank you very much. I just realized it's tea with Mimi, and I violated probably rule one, which is not having tea.
It's really any beverage will work, yeah. But while we're on that really important topic, what beverage do you have today?
Well, so as you and I were speaking about a few minutes ago, I have my red Gatorade, the answer to happiness, one of the many answers to happiness for me with crushed ice. And I have my backup because one never knows when one runs out of red Gatorade. So I have iced water over here on the side.
Oh, that's great. Hydration is very important, and it sounds like electrolytes are important too.
Electrolytes are critical, and dry throats are no good. I can tell you from professional and personal experience. And you have tea, maybe.
I do. This is actually tea. I'm drinking some chamomile, so very standard herbal is a favorite. And as people are gathering, I think I'm going to introduce you officially, even though we've been chatting. So some information about you. Dr. Udayan Shah is professor of otolaryngology and head and neck surgery and professor of pediatrics at the Sidney Kimmel Medical College of Thomas Jefferson University. He was formerly chief of pediatric otolaryngology at Nemours, Delaware Valley, and an attending surgeon at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. He has over 130 publications, gives presentations in the US and abroad, and has an MBA from Temple University. Dr. Shah also plays violin and mandolin, and he'll be talking a little bit more about his musical tastes as we continue our chat. And I'm very fortunate that you are also my otolaryngologist helping me with vestibular migraine. So thank you and welcome again.
Oh, I have to say you are an awesome patient, not to get too glowy early on in the call, but it is such a privilege to be able to care for you and to be able to help.
Thank you so much. Well, you absolutely do. And it's just inspiring how many people you've helped throughout your career in so many ways. And most lately, musicians in general. So we collaborated on a talk that you with your colleague, audiologist Dr. Alexander Koslow gave at Temple University at the Boyer College of Music and Dance, where I'm on faculty, for students called Hearing Health for Musicians. And you talked about all sorts of really important and crucial things on this topic with hearing protection and preservation for those of us who devote our lives' work to making music. And I would love for you to share some points about that. But first, maybe we will start with a musical sample. And you, in the talk you gave at Temple, wonderfully put something from the composer we all think about when we think about hearing loss and music, Beethoven, and you chose the Egmont Overture. Which was great to put on. But in this time, I've been sort of learning more about different composers with that problem. And Gabriel Fauré, one of my favorite composers and French composers, also had hearing loss, which started, I think, in his 50s or so, but also involved, unfortunately, hearing high and low sounds in music with distortion. And he dealt with it throughout the last part of his career while he was director of the Paris Conservatory, and eventually stepped down due in part to that, but also other ill health. But he was composing some of the works we know and love while losing his hearing, just like Beethoven, which is just incredible. And what I thought I'd share is actually his really famous Fantasy for Flute and Piano. We're going to hear an excerpt of that, which he wrote in 1898, so about the decade or so before these problems started happening. And he wrote it as a contest piece at the Paris Conservatory. So here is some of the Fauré Fantasy to set the scene, and then we'll talk more about matters otological. Thank you. So that was some Foray Fantasie I performed with Charles Abramovic. I am here with Dr. Udayan Shah, otolaryngologist, and that was a segue into the presentation he gave at Temple University about hearing health for musicians. So yeah, we set the stage as you did at that talk with some Beethoven, famous composers who have had, unfortunately, hearing loss, which is tragic. But yeah, it would be so wonderful for our listeners to hear from you a little bit about what you shared pertaining to ear anatomy and how we hear. And let me actually bring a slide from your presentation, which was phenomenal.
Oh, thank you. And Mimi, before we get to the very exciting teaching moment here, I want to respond to the comment from Cordus Mundi. Watching the juxtaposition of your hands and Charles's from that view is breathtaking along the lines of what Cordus Mundi had said.
Oh, thank you so much.
Your alignment with each other, and you and I had spoken about that also with respect to impressions from what you perform.
Oh, thank you so much.
The ears work, and we have two of them, if we're lucky, to funnel sound from the outside world. I'm sorry, I don't actually. Maybe could I use a mouse and will that show? No, it won't, will it? To the left of your screen is the outer ear that funnels, directs, and transforms sound energy in the form of waves, which then go through the tunnel, the ear canal, to reach what's labeled as the tympanic membrane, eardrum. the tympanic membrane, the ossicles, the bones of hearing from on your screen left to right, or from almost cartoon octopus looking like Malleus in that view, to the tubular looking incus in the middle, and the stapes, which looks like a plate cover, so to speak. Malleus, incus, stapes, hammer, anvil, stirrup, as many of you may know this, then goes into also the other sea creature looking organ, maybe not accidentally, evolutionarily, the inner ear, the cochlea. Balance canals are above and behind the hearing organ, which is a snail shell, the cochlea, which is in front of everyone and a little bit lower than everybody else. Sound is funneled from the ear canal, amplified, modified in terms of frequencies, amplified in terms of intensity at touch by the structures of the outer or external ear, and then changed, amplified again by the surface area difference between the eardrum, which is way bigger, large in surface area, than at the very bottom of what is labeled ossicles. And to the far right is a stapes, which is an arch-like structure overlying a footplate. So arch and the footplate. The surface area of that footplate is small compared to the surface area of the eardrum. Sound is amplified by that size differential. So pressure is amplified by large surface area, small pressure, to small surface area, higher pressure. The mechanical action of the ossicles, the bones of hearing, which work with several levers in action, increasing the intensity of sound. And then the clear middle ear space. So that area where the bones are between the eardrum, tympanic membrane, and the inner ear needs to be clear for sound management, for sound transmission. And if there's fluid from an ear infection, if there's a growth there, that impedes sound transmission and conduction and amplification. Once the sound waves go into the inner ear, and there is about a 22-fold increase in the sound pressure level, or rather in the pressure felt or detected in the inner ear compared to what hits the eardrum from the outside. The organ of hearing within the cochlea transduces the pressure changes in the fluid in the inner ear. Here you see within the chambers above in the green diagram section through the cochlea, and the scala media, the cochlear duct, is the organ of Corti in red with the small bars and tubes in the middle of that diagram. That organ changes sound pressure once it's been, or I should say, the movement of the ear fluid into electrical impulses, which then go into the nerves.
Wow, so you're saying fluid in the middle ear, that's bad. We know that that's like an ear infection or something, but there's always fluid in the inner ear.
Yes.
Is there?
There is.
Okay. Wow. So we're looking now at the heart of the inner ear, and that's what's super interesting that you said is just how the sound is amplified from what actually reaches us. So when you, for example, talk about dangerous levels of decibels, that's like the actual decibel in the room that we're hearing, but it's magnified in essence inside the anatomy of the ear.
Oh,
or not?
Maybe. What we record
Mm-hmm.
as a sound pressure level, or the decibel,
Mm-hmm.
is what we perceive as sound. What the ear receives is pressure.
Oh, wow.
The ear doesn't know it's sound. The ear knows it as pressure.
That is super
We
interesting.
perceive it as sound.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is great. See, I know that for me, having gone to conservatory, I didn't have anatomy. So I think, and we know from some of the feedback, our music students were very excited to learn about this from the physiological standpoint, as well as from the very practical standpoint about, what decibels could be dangerous and even what frequencies we're more susceptible to. Or actually, that might be something you can help with as well in terms of like which part of the inner ear hears different frequencies. I think you better help me out here. Okay, I turn it back
No,
over.
you are on a good roll,
Yeah.
and good roll is despite your supposed lack of understanding of anatomy, you absolutely get it because you scrolled directly through all the other slides in perfect sequence of explanation to reach the frequency map. So nicely done. And here is the cochlea laid out schematically with a tonotopic map. And the organization of the cochlea is wild. I am stunned by the organization that our body has. And let's go from outside to inside. And so the outside world is closest to the whatever color, I guess, between 16,000 and 220,000 or 21,000 hertz.
Oh, that tiny magenta area looks like.
Yeah, the more than purple magenta area, the very tip there, that's what abuts the outside world. Where do we lose our hearing most often early on as we go through presbycusis or age-related hearing loss? It's these cells which are on the outer part of the cochlea, high frequency noises. And when one looks at an audiogram, at a hearing examination, at a quantified hearing examination from a booth through an audiologist, the highest pitches are the ones that drop off first. And one has to, I wonder, and I believe this has evolutionary reasons because as we start marching from magenta to lavender to maybe corn blue, I'm not sure what the right colors are going to be, light blue, light green, dark green, progress towards the red. The red are the lowest frequencies. And I just have to wonder, are the lowest frequencies in the deepest part of the cochlea the first ones which may have developed evolutionarily and the last ones to go because maybe the higher pitches mattered less in an environment in which we were being eaten by animals that stomped and had low frequency hoofs as noises, or low pitched growls, which we really need to hear, versus higher pitched birds, which may have been less threatening. Maybe.
Wow, I was fascinated to learn that possibly the lowest tones were heard earliest in our evolution.
Maybe. And there are such interesting evolutionary models. The zebrafish of all fish, little thing, is one of the models for studying cochlear development. And just last week, Ms. Stillman, a patient of mine who is a dean at a medical school brought me several of her papers from 1981 and 1985 when she was busy working with the bonnet monkey, Macala radiata, is the scientific name, documenting the inner ear anatomy and development of these monkeys, and all through evolution of species which have inner ears. The anatomy is remarkably consistent.
That's amazing. Wow, and actually what I'm seeing here too, Judith Mariscal said, buenas tardes, buenas tardes. Thanks for listening. You're welcome, everybody who's here, to say hello. Let us know what you're drinking, if you're drinking tea or something else. on the show. And also, we heard from Cordis Mundi, or wonderful choral director Rick Rosen. So, Rick, if you have any questions for Dr. Shah pertaining to otolaryngology, especially for singing, this is a great opportunity to ask them. Everyone, you're welcome to ask questions to my guest. And also, as we're talking more about how hearing works, and we shared some anatomy, one of the really interesting things that came up in the presentation at Temple was just how themselves and test have an echo going on. Let me just check something. Okay. I think we should be good. I think it's hearing. Okay. Yeah, so what are some ways that musicians can protect their hearing?
Excuse me. I think it starts with awareness that hearing, one must proactively seek to protect this exceptionally intricate and delicate pair of organs. And don't forget that the hearing doesn't stop at the inner ear. We have to perceive, process, and understand sound. So everyone and everybody, from upstairs to downstairs, so to speak, needs to be part of the hearing game. And that includes organs like the eustachian tube. And there is a tiny bit of the eustachian tube shown in the very first image, making sure that middle ear fluid does not collect and block sound off. There's the pink tube shooting off under the snail shell to the far right of the diagram. That goes to the back of our throats. So if we are full of mucus, full of toxic cigarette smoke, full of smog and pollution, full of allergens, all of that stuff ain't good for the middle ear or our inner ear and for hearing. So be aware of the things which can lead to hearing problems, and aware of how delicate the organs are, and to be active in knowing the musical environment, the environment of the rooms, arenas, crowds, bars, taverns you may be playing in, singing in, speaking in, and make sure that there is a regular way for one to assess hearing throughout one's life and career. So getting a baseline of oneself, knowing your family history if you're able to, and then understanding what your hearing is doing over time and having a low threshold yourself for getting it checked and tested, and maintaining a community of knowledge which is multi-directional. So the musician talking to the hearing health professionals like Dr. Koslow and my colleagues, and making sure that we maintain those connections and communications as we learn things and see things. And that's one of the great joys of working with patients like you, who report symptoms, understand documentation, following symptoms and effects, and communicating with each of us as we discover new ways of managing problems, and maintaining education throughout the process, and making sure that there's reciprocal learning and then dissemination of that learning on this day that the Department of Education is seeing changes at a national level, just saying.
Well, it's absolutely important that people are aware of the types of acoustics we're playing in, because if you're in a boomy room versus a dry room or something that hasn't been treated, it can make a huge difference to how much sound you're getting right in your head. And absolutely. So, I mean, I think another thing that came out that was kind of surprising when you or Dr. Koslow asked the students, and we had 65 plus winds in brass, primarily from the Temple University Wind Symphony there. But one of you asked them, who has had even intermittent tinnitus or ringing in the ears after loud experiences? So many people had their hands up, or let's say muffled hearing, or just like some change had been experienced by so many of the kids. And it's concerning, so it's really good that we're armed as young as possible with this information, and have the hearing test, and also have these wonderful filters made. It sounds like a commercial, but it's not. But I've always had audiologist molds made to use that cut off certain numbers of decibels, which is really important. And some of my students are having them made as well.
No, I'm glad you mentioned that, Mimi, because I Um, I hate gambling. I can't stand the idea of giving money for an uncertain outcome for
Mhm.
fun. That seems insane. I mean, yes, that's a stock market, and yet I almost never ever buy a lottery ticket. But if I did and won lots and lots and lots of money,
Mhm.
I would absolutely fund a music student good hearing protection program.
Mhm.
Because when we spoke at the Boyer School,
Yeah.
many of the students, privately or in that session, spoke about the cost of musicians' earplugs being an impediment to them using what they need to do to protect their ears, which is
Yeah.
what their career depends upon, their happiness depends upon.
Absolutely. But I think the information you're giving is just so crucial because I mean, if you think about it, they're much less expensive than whatever instrument we play and all the years of lessons and all of that kind of stuff and your college tuition. So it's really it's a very worthwhile investment. And
It cost about $300, as I understand it, a pair. A pair
Mhm.
will last probably about as long as for a man. A pair of men's shoes may last in that
Mhm.
price range. And
Yeah.
I've always, since I've been younger, amortized seemingly really expensive things on an annual basis. So shoes are $300 a pair. That's a buck a day. And
Exactly.
is that worth paying for? And
But
how much
actually priceless.
things
Yeah.
cost
What
a
it
day?
does. Yeah, no, 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 absolutely. So it's great, and I'm so delighted that you will be doing more of these for other institutions, and just spreading the knowledge is so important. So thank you for that, Udayan. And
Well, thank
it's been, thank you. But it's been really fun learning about some of your favorite music and some of your favorite composers. And one of them you mentioned, well, you mentioned your three favorite composers. Maybe I won't give them away. Who are your three favorite
you.
classical composers?
Well, I'm laughing because poor Mimi made the mistake of actually asking me an open-ended question, and um, I love all sorts of music, and so this was a very difficult question. So my first answer to this to Mimi was were three photographs. One of the drawers in my cabinet where I keep my overflow stuff. The other are the CDs which haven't found a home yet in an appropriate shelf. And the third was one of my LP racks. And so classical composers off the top of my head that are my favorites include, in no particular order, Handel, Copland, and who else did I say? Did I say Bach? I must have.
Yeah, you did. I know it's a hard to pick, but these are great choices, and I have a little Bach for you, and then I have actually a related sample that you actually chose. So let's hear some Bach. This is I'm really happy to share. It's one of the most famous Bach for flute moments, the Badineri from the orchestral suite in B minor with my Dolce Suono ensemble. we're back after some call.
Oh, go ahead. You first.
No, please. Sorry.
No, I was smiling all through that because I had a flashback to my very short-lived musical career. Also, picturing Chip Coldell, who was first at that point, and myself somewhere back there, playing that at a much different, read as slower tempo.
Oh, thank you. That's so nice. So you played it on violin and throughout your studies. Was that school or college?
I had the violin with me, and there
Mhm.
was music in front of me. Whether it was played is a different.
Oh, but I was actually thinking since we're on the topic of hearing and how it works that Baroque music just isn't as loud. Not just Baroque instruments were not as loud, but the Baroque music itself, and like the highest note I've ever seen in Bach is a high A, which is like two A's above the staff, and which is pretty high, but I've only seen it one time in one cantata. Usually F sharp, maybe G is his highest a few times per piece. And just as instruments got louder, music got louder, this is more and more of an issue.
I've always wondered about our understanding of past composers and the environment in which they played, and understanding that some chamber music would have been played in tapestried stone small rooms. Others may have been played in somewhat cavernous stone, wooden cathedrals, churches. And I always wonder about the acoustics, how they would change, the quietness of the audiences. The reason that Shakespeare threw a lot of body humor up early in his plays to quiet down the drunken crowds, presumably. And it just makes me wonder about what the acoustics were like compared to today, and the physical space in which people were playing.
It's true. And I've never thought about this from an audiological standpoint per se, more from a music history standpoint, but from one of our shared favorite composers, Handel, like his music for the Royal Fireworks. Those are loud, probably even in the 18th century. Water music. There was just this conception in the Baroque period about indoor and outdoor instruments. So indoor would be the quieter, like recorders and viols emerging from the Renaissance consorts. And then outdoors, the oboes and horns and things that have, I guess, like hunting and military connotations. But if you do hear them outside, it's not right in your face in a small room, is it?
Right, and you're not along the Thames competing with folks jockeying for attention, getting the king's eye and all of that business. To answer, is it Rick that is the Cordis Mundi person?
Yeah. He just put a that would be great for you to answer that. Maybe we
awesome, awesome question. I don't know, and I can answer this from the back end, so to speak.
Maybe I'll interrupt you. I'm sorry for 1 second, just to repeat the question in case someone's listening. Great. What has amplification done to our hearing? Are we adapting/evolving? Some of us have very loud rock and roll in our sordid pasts too. Wow, thanks for that. That's a great question.
Yeah, and that's exactly why I'll answer this from the back end, and you've already Rick interpreted or predicted my answer. I don't know yet. It can't be good what we're doing with our hearing right now, in that I don't think many of us protect our ears enough to allow us to keep hearing well as the rest of our bodies live longer, if that makes sense. And I'll leave it at that. I don't know.
I remember at Temple you showed a map of the United States, and it was color coded for where hearing loss is, I guess, is most prevalent. And it was amazing how how frequent it is throughout the country.
Yeah, Dr. Casso, Allie has some incredible data she pulled, and I forget the source. I believe it was either a national school survey or a federal survey.
Yeah. Well, actually, why don't we put another track that you had suggested? Because I asked you for your favorite music, and this is the Elizabeth Von Trapp, who I was not familiar with, but the Sound of Music family I am familiar with. Do you want to introduce that, or should I just kind of present it and talk after the music?
I'm just going to say that I won't use the one word which I used to describe her to you in my note to you when I sent it. I will tell the crew that I heard this driving on a cool, rainy December afternoon a long, long time ago, not that far away from where I live now, but far enough away. And immediately took down the address to which one may send a written request for the CD. And I sent away maybe $19 by check to Vermont, which is where Elizabeth Von Trapp, and yes, that Von Trapp lived then, and received it in time for Christmas and have played this capital R religiously, mostly during holiday seasons. Almost always, it is loaded on slot 3 of my CD player.
Oh, nice. Okay, I'm gonna put it on.
Because all men are brothers, wherever men may be, and women all are sisters, forever proud and free. No tyrant shall defeat us, no nation strike us down, and no tongue shall greet us. The whole wide world around, my brothers and my sisters, forever hand in hand, we're chiming the bells of freedom. There is my native land, my brother's fears are my fears, yellow, white, or brown. My sister's tears are my tears. The whole wide world around, let every voice be thunder, let every heart be strong, until all tyrants perish. Our work will not be done. Let every pain be token, the lost years shall be found. Let slavery's chains be broken. The whole wide world
It's very beautiful.
Just that dance between voice, bow,
Mhm.
ears.
It's so beautiful. And when you sent it to me, as soon as I heard the first phrase, I thought this is the Bach chorale from Matthew Passion that we had to play in a solfege class at Curtis, actually, as well, in original clefs on piano, which was very difficult. But no, but it's actually from the Matthew Passion, and it's
Mhm.
O Haupt voll Blut und Wunden.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
my head full of blood and wounds is actually like the text in that context. So I was like, wow, this is for Bach. So I didn't know, about the arrangement or
Well,
very
no accident that she is of Austrian descent in part, and that some of the pieces on that album, Christmas,
different.
are sung in German.
Oh wow, that's so interesting. Well, it definitely has a very sort of like peaceful and uplifting
Mm.
vibe. Yeah, in the Baccaral, it's very kind of like muscular and a bit. It's very different. So it's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that one. And then,
Maybe.
thank you. I've always wanted to know how you got interested in otolaryngology. I mean, you told me about medicine in
who,
general.
who goes to med school saying that, right? So, um, I, um, so when I went to med school, I pictured myself, and growing up, I pictured myself, if I were going to be a doctor, I'd be driving around a Ford Country Squire, which we never had, that station wagon. We had a Ford Pinto first, and then a Chevy wagon. But the Ford Country Squire is much more of a doctor's looking wagon. And so I'd have myself, dog, and visit children, adults, and animals and take care of them completely. So that changed very quickly when I was exposed to inspirational otolaryngologists from the beginning of med school onwards, and interrupted by a little flirtation with neurology. And so I spent an afternoon with the chief of neurology at then Boston City Hospital. And as we sat in his office, the sun is setting over Boston Harbor. The building looks to the south. He had a beautiful corner office high up in one of the old brick buildings. And he said, neurology is not for you. And he recommended otolaryngology and ophthalmology. I was so depressed. And otolaryngology is an intricate specialty. We can fix people, and people can breathe better, hear better because of what the science, the techniques, the constant advances in the field have allowed us to be able to do. And I was attracted to neurology and to otolaryngology because of my love of music,
Mhm.
hearing, perception, sound, and voice. And in otolaryngology, you can't do much about the vision part, but you can about the hearing, perception, voice, sound part.
That's so interesting. And I mean, obviously, it's very neurological too. When you're dealing with the ear and brain connection, I wonder why your mentor thought that neurology wouldn't be the great fit for you.
Oh, I think other than me being absolutely depressed and probably looking exceptionally bored and depressed during that whole afternoon, um, he knew that I loved working with my hands. And he specifically said ophthalmology and otolaryngology because he knew of my love of neural stuff. He could have said, um, be a carpenter, or no, truly, or do orthopedics or do urology, or think of emergency medicine where you can use your hands and use your mind and just be a doctor, just do general practice. But he knew that I liked intricate things. He knew that I liked complexity, and the manual dexterity required for otolaryngology is high, and as it is in ophthalmology. And he knew that I probably had okay enough hands.
Oh, is that because of the things you work on are so tiny, especially if you're doing pediatrics? I wonder how pediatrics came about for you also.
I'll talk about the peds in a split second because I know that was one of your questions.
Yeah.
The margin for error is very small. I mean, no pun intended. In otolaryngology in general, and so that's why. And the pieces often are tiny and intricate and interwoven, and and not always where they're supposed to be. You know, the body doesn't read the textbooks in our part nor in other areas. Pediatric otolaryngology was in very close running with otology, purely ear diseases, which is what I do now. I love children, and to be able to treat someone with a disease process that can either be eliminated in one stop early, or which transforms their entire life is so powerful. And many of the things we do in pediatric otolaryngology are life-changing early on and are transient, placing ear tubes in children with ear infections. The tubes fall out, ears heal usually, children hear normally, develop, speak normally. A cochlear implant, which is a surgery will replace electrodes in the inner ear. Yes, the device stays in that patient, maybe always, as long as there are no complications, usually always. You can always hear, and they can be part of society. The acute things, the sudden things in pediatric otolaryngology, ice skate crossing hockey player's neck and transecting it and having an open airway, getting transported to us repairing him and him becoming, staying a normal person after that injury, children choking on things, not being able to breathe, fixing that immediately. And then the slow game things which are growing in the neck, which are cancerous or not, growths on other parts of the head and neck. And again, breathing and hearing loss.
Yeah, it's incredible how much good you have brought to the world by doing what you do, and even just being able to do surgeries that have such positive outcomes on people's lives, on children's lives. It must be incredibly inspiring to do it, but also for me to learn about it.
Inspiring to be able to do it, just to be at a time in history when we can fix a lot of things, not many things, but a lot of things. And in pediatric otolaryngology, we really could do every aspect of otolaryngology, as opposed to being in a subspecialty of otolaryngology, say otology, where I would not have been able to do the airway surgery or the neck masses necessarily if I stayed in academics. And I absolutely planned on staying in academics, not on training in one specialty area and then practicing the entire breadth of the specialty.
Well, you do seem to have a lot of diversity in your career with surgery and academics and research and writing and clinical work and teaching and presenting, and also an MBA. And so, yeah, I'm curious how all the different outlets fit together or came about throughout your trajectory.
It really is there's a time for every season business. That as career, I knew from the very beginning that I wanted to be in academic medicine, and around people who will push me and pull me in the right directions and challenge me, colleagues and difficult problems technically or even situationally, trying to find ways to deliver care to distant areas. When I was division chief or in charge of a group of doctors, and the MBA was because I wanted to know that I could really understand how we needed to grow, build, and develop beyond the technical medicine and into the business knowledge, the strategic knowledge, the system-wide thinking that it was going to take. I did not want to have the wool pulled over my eyes by anyone anywhere. And when I was in charge of our group, I really needed to make sure that I was steering all of us in the right direction and understanding what I needed to do to help people grow, more than anything, to help my people grow and to help our patients get to where they need to be.
Wow. Well, that's fascinating to know. Thank you for that. As well as right here, actually. This is from the talk that you gave at Temple. And you asked for a student volunteer. And I don't know if everybody can see what is happening right here. This is such a great example about hearing.
So I won't disclose his name other than to say this wonderful student whose name starts with a J was the volunteer. And what I'm doing, and I thought about bringing the tuning fork. Ooh, I mean, it's in the other room. It's a 512 hertz tuning fork. And so I'm placing this tuning fork behind Jay's right ear on the bone, on the mastoid bone. And I bet some of you might have a tuning fork laying around somewhere. And so lay that on your mastoid tip. And then when you know, well, first of all, you have to hit the tuning fork and it has to vibrate. Don't hit it very loudly or you'll be cursing yourself. So hit it at a medium intensity, place it on your mastoid tip, this part, this bony, soft, rounded area behind your ear, until the sound is no longer present as far as you are aware. And then with the tuning fork still vibrating, place it just outside of your ear. You ought to, if your air conduction, if your ability of the outer ear, ear canal, eardrum, bones of hearing space of the middle ear are working enough, you ought to hear the outside sound more than you hear the back of ear sound, because Darwinically, maybe is the right word, evolutionarily, we ought to hear outside sounds better than we hear our nerve sounds. So air conduction should be better than bone conduction. So that's what we're doing with him.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, obviously I went home and did it to myself with my little tuning fork, which is super fun to do. So I recommend it to all our friends in the audience. It's a great way to demonstrate air and bone conduction, as Dr. Shah just explained. So
it's called the RINE, RINNE test. I do not know, as opposed to, usually I'll say to Mimi or her students, I'll say, oh, well, this is Corti. He's an Italian who married really well and was able to study anatomy. And so I don't know anything about RINE, and for our next event, I will make sure
okay, that sounds great. Well, as I said, I'm totally learning about this field from scratch pretty much, but I just learned that Adam Pulitzer's temporal bone dissections and models of ears that I guess he brought here for the 1876 exposition are at the Mutter Museum in Philadelphia.
That's correct.
So now I have to go see them.
Oh, lots of cool stuff over there. And that's where the College of Physicians of Philadelphia is. I believe they began, I think, in 1787, 2 years before our Constitution was signed. It's a beautiful building.
Yes, it is.
And the Mutter Museum is something else.
And we played a concert there with really nice acoustics in one of the larger halls. Nice older building has often good sound. So my next question is going to be about kind of what do you do to relax when you're not doing the sort of high performance career? And we were talking a little bit with some interesting parallels. I mean, playing music is very, very different, and you can see much lower stakes than doing actual surgery on people. When we do it, we feel the stakes are pretty high. And so we talked a little bit about that kind of thing. But first, I'm going to put on one of the tracks that you sent.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Well, I think it's relevant.
What's time? Everybody,
Mimi, that's perfect. You know, I'm wondering if you should replace your iconic
Mhm.
Brazilian dance at the end of your performances with something from this album.
Well, Bow Wow Wow is something I just learned about, and I don't know about the English New Wave. I was like, what are those pitches? I think we better keep to what we're doing.
And to answer Rick's question,
Yeah.
maybe. And I will do my best to find you something, but there is so much great stuff on the internet. Also, one of the best ones is from the University of California at San Francisco. But Rick, if you're okay with it, I'll have Mimi share your contact info, or better yet, I can send ideas to Mimi and she can disseminate it broadly as well with some ideas for not just basic. You guys are smart, you get it, and you live this world of hearing. And ear and hearing are really, really, really easy to understand. If you can figure out how to pluck the right string of a harp or figure out where on a trombone D sharp is, hey, you've got this. This is not rocket science. It's not brain surgery.
Mhm. Well, that would be fascinating to have those resources. Thank you. And absolutely, because what we do all the time for music, and this is not specifically about the ear, let's say, but the idea of concentrating intensely.
Mm-hmm.
So to perform, and let's say for you as a doctor, as a surgeon, um, what do you do for that? Like what do you do when you're doing it? How do you relax from it? How do you prepare for it? I'm so curious.
Um, I'll do the what do you do for it part first. And
Mhm.
I think, I believe, just as with what you do or what high performance athletes, what fighter pilots do, what um, anybody that has a job with minimal margin of error. And, I think of you playing, and I think one wrong note and it becomes a squawk, not a note. And it is noticeable, it's not something which you can hide from. And your partners are going to hate you forever, kind of. And so and we all take what we do so seriously. So preparation, in the form of a training which exposes you to everything, which prepares you for every contingency. And there is no such thing as being prepared for every contingency, because when you're ready, things are going to change. And so knowing options, alternatives, nuances, studying, learning, reading, thinking, communing with people who do what you do and outside of what you do. One of my big beliefs in learning, growth, and career and just life is epitomized by my favorite place on earth, Wellfleet, Massachusetts, a pond in the middle of this, to me, oasis. It's a dry scrubland of Cape Cod, but to me, it's an oasis. And there are kettle ponds, meaning places where the glaciers allegedly slammed into stuff, scoop things out, rainwater collects its fresh water between salt and briny stuff. And at the edges of the pond are where change happens, not in the center. And it's at the periphery of what each of us do that we really are connected to each other and that we really learn. So in otolaryngology, in any high performance art, you study other high performance artists. You study the philosophy of Heidegger. You study Zen and the art of archery for understanding perfection. You read Zen and the art of motorcycle maintenance, and that takes you down a different rabbit hole um, of understanding. You understand philosophy, you understand science and technology, and you do everything you can to broaden your mind and at the same time be hyper focused on your area of specialty and become really, 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 really good at knowing what you're good at and then becoming better at what you're good at.
That's absolutely right for what we do as musicians, because I think it makes us better artists if we know about history and visual art and the literature and just everything of the time, where the music is coming from. But just to be more well-rounded people as well, helps us as artists. And then in the moment, we're talking about preparedness. Absolutely, I think every person is different, but we talk a lot about if you essentially over prepare. There's no such thing, right? But let's say you play with 125% of your best skills, tone, technique, facility, everything. And let's say in a performance situation, if you're nervous, you lose some of it, you're still at 100%. So it's kind of the philosophy of
Well,
preparation.
and to your point, um, I teach colleagues, not teach colleagues, but I can't help it. I just tell them. But to students, I'll tell them there are the 5 P's and the 6 P's of preparation. The 5 P's are proper preparation prevents poor performance.
Okay.
6 P's are, am I allowed to swear a little bit on this?
I think
Maybe,
so. Yeah. Depends. No. Yeah.
we,
Go for
we
it.
had wow on just now, so I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah.
Piss poor preparation portends for the Ivy League crowd, but predicts poor
Yes.
performance. So
Oh, absolutely. Okay.
yeah, and you really did answer the relaxation question. Then, for me, it's diversion through going to the Philadelphia Museum of Art. And when we first moved to Philadelphia, um, for some reason, I had the blessing of Wednesday afternoons off, administrative time. So I would go to the art museum from CHOP and just sit for an hour or two, usually in front of the medieval art. And I'm a religious guy and I love iconography, and um,
Yeah.
I find ways to do that, or I was involved in the community. I used to play a lot of tennis at one point, and that was my diversion. And then, of course, children, family, and all of that.
That's great. Yes, I love the medieval cloister at the Philadelphia Museum of Art and the Romanesque area because I grew up loving Eleanor of Aquitaine. So like the 12th century is sometimes a good place to be, right?
Yeah, the whole Philadelphia Museum, absolutely, I agree.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
no,
this
I
goes
know.
back when one could actually park. Maybe it wasn't legal, but they never told us. We would park at level with the museum. Just you kind of go around the circle and just park anywhere.
Yeah, that was really easy back then. Or I don't know. I think yeah, it's not as easy to just like run into the museum. But that said, I do love visiting, especially Impressionism, whenever I can for my French
Mhm.
music connection.
And they took down the really cool modern-y thing,
Mhm.
which had the Iliad laid out. Do you remember that in the very back corner?
No, back home where? Like in the
Uh-huh.
museum.
Yeah,
No,
in the modern
I
art
saw that.
section.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh wait, yes, it was like no idea. Yeah. Oh wait, whose is that? It was like the big frescoes sort of thing.
Uh-huh. I think it's Cy Twombly. That's the guy.
Okay. No,
Oh, here we go.
I maybe saw
Yeah.
it years ago.
So,
Okay, good. Anyway, well, this is great. It's been so fascinating speaking with you, going a little more into depth into what you do, but also just having you share a little bit with everybody what you shared with the musicians at Temple, and we'll be doing more for music students. I'm so appreciative, and just so you know, this stays up as a video, so people who joined late or missed it will often watch later on and share it. And so please know that you do, and you're welcome to find out more about our work on the internet and follow up from here. And if you have any questions and want to put them in the chat later on, please do. Oh, thank you, Rick, for your comment. Excellent discussion. Bravo. Bravo. Thank you. It's great having you here. And once again, thank you so much, Udayan, for
no,
sharing
thank
with
you. This is wonderful. I love your community, which in my computer is laid out
us.
here. You are so fortunate to have these people around you and these connections.
Absolutely. No, I think like what we do, it's never in a vacuum, right? It's all about the colleagues and the people.
Can't be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I will send you, Mimi, some references which are small, medium, large, slow, fast, and deep.
That sounds great. I keep learning fascinating things about science after not going to high school and going to music school. So this is great. Thank you so much. Okay.
I think we're much better learners as we get older. I really do.
If we're doing it right, right? I know as artists, that's absolutely the case. Like to keep learning
Mhm.
throughout our life it's a blessing, but it also means we're kind of doing our job. So
Yeah.
yeah. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your experience, Udayan, tonight. And I'll say goodnight to everybody.
Take care, everyone. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.